I'm not available for dinner, Miss Sinclair. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Ava Sinclair, billionaire, company director, a woman who'd never heard the word no, froze mid-sentence. Across from her sat Liam Carter, single father, mid-level employee, a man with everything to lose. But he didn't flinch. What happens when power meets principle? When a father's promise becomes more important than his paycheck? Stick around until the end. You won't believe how this plays out. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The alarm went off at 5:47 a.m., same as always. Liam Carter's hand shot out from under the covers, silencing it before the second beep. Muscle memory. 3 years of single parenthood had turned him into the kind of person who woke up before his alarm anyway, lying there in the dark, mentally rehearsing the day ahead like a general planning a campaign. Shower, coffee. Wake Emma. Breakfast. Pack lunch. School drop-off by 7:45. Office by 8:30. Leave by 5 sharp. Pick up by 5:30. Dinner. Homework. Bath. Story. Bed by 8:30. Then the second shift. Emails, reports, whatever he couldn't finish during actual work hours because he refused to be the guy who stayed late while his kid waited in aftercare. Every single day. No exceptions. No room for error. He sat up, running both hands through hair that desperately needed a cut. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic already building on the street below. Studio apartment. One bedroom for Emma, a pull-out couch for him in the living room. It wasn't much, but it was clean, and it was theirs. And the rent was manageable even on his salary. Manageable. That word did a lot of heavy lifting in Liam's vocabulary. The shower was quick. He'd gotten it down to 6 minutes, including shaving. Every minute counted. He threw on the same rotation of business casual he'd been cycling through for 2 years now. Gray slacks, white shirt, navy tie. Nothing flashy, nothing that drew attention. Just professional enough to blend into the background at Morrison and Klein Marketing, where he'd worked for the past 4 years. Coffee was already brewing. He'd set the timer the night before. He poured it into a travel mug, black, no sugar. Caffeine was fuel, not enjoyment. There wasn't time for enjoyment at 6:15 in the morning. He knocked softly on Emma's door, then opened it. "Hey, Bug, time to wake up." The lump under the purple comforter didn't move. "Emma, come on, kiddo, school day." A small groan emerged from somewhere deep within the blankets. 5 more minutes. That's what you said yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. Liam crossed to the window and pulled back the curtains, letting in the gray October light. Up and at 'em. "Dad, it's still dark." "It's Seattle in October. It's always dark." He sat on the edge of her bed, placing a hand on what he hoped was her shoulder. "But you know what's not dark? Your future, if you actually make it to school today." The blanket pulled back just enough to reveal one skeptical brown eye. That was the worst dad joke ever. "I've got worse. Want to hear the one about the, I'm up, I'm up." Emma threw the covers off and sat up, her dark hair sticking up in about 17 different directions. She was 7 years old, gap-toothed, and the spitting image of her mother in ways that sometimes made Liam's chest physically hurt. Smart choice. He stood. "Bathroom. 5 minutes. I'm making pancakes." "The frozen ones?" "I'm a single dad, not a magician." "Yes, the frozen ones." Emma grinned and scrambled out of bed, padding past him toward the bathroom. Liam watched her go, then let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. 3 years. 3 years of mornings like this, and he still had moments where the weight of it all tried to crush him flat. But he didn't let it. He couldn't. In the kitchen, he pulled a box of frozen pancakes from the freezer and popped 4 into the toaster. While they heated, he assembled Emma's lunch, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, apple slices, string cheese, juice box, and a handful of pretzels. Same lunch every day, because Emma had decided 2 months ago that this was the only acceptable combination, and Liam had learned to pick his battles. The pancakes popped up. He plated them, added a drizzle of syrup, and set them on the small dining table that doubled as his workspace in the evenings. Emma appeared moments later, dressed in jeans and a striped shirt, her hair now pulled into a slightly crooked ponytail that she'd insisted on doing herself. "Looking good, Bug." "I know." She climbed into her chair and attacked the pancakes with the enthusiasm of someone who hadn't eaten in days rather than the 12 hours since dinner. Liam sat across from her with his coffee, watching her eat. These quiet moments were his favorite part of the day. Before the rush, before the demands, before the world required anything from him, just the two of them, together. "So what's on the agenda today?" he asked. Emma spoke around a mouthful of pancake. "Math test."
You ready for it?
"Uh-huh. We studied last night, remember?" "Right, multiplication tables." "You crushed it. 7 times 8 is 56. She said it with pride like she'd just solved world hunger. "Exactly. You're going to do great." He glanced at the clock, 7:23, right on schedule. "Finish up. We need to leave in 12 minutes. Emma nodded, syrup on her chin, and Liam felt that familiar tightness in his chest again. The weight. The responsibility. The sheer magnitude of being the only person standing between this kid and the chaos of the world. He thought about Sarah sometimes. More than sometimes. Every day, really. Usually in moments like this. She'd been the organized one, the planner, the one who could juggle 14 things at once and make it look easy. Liam had been the support system, the steady presence, the guy who showed up and did what needed doing. And then one random Tuesday, she'd dropped dead of an aneurysm in the produce section at Whole Foods. No warning. No chance to say goodbye. No time to prepare. Just gone. Emma had been 4. For the first 6 months, Liam had moved through life like a zombie, functioning on autopilot and the occasional kindness of neighbors and coworkers. He'd thought about quitting his job. Thought about moving back to Michigan where his parents were. Thought about a lot of things that would have been easier in the short term and disastrous in the long run. Instead, he'd made a decision. He would show up every day. For Emma, no matter what. It was the only promise he knew how to keep. "Dad, you okay?" He blinked. Emma was staring at him, her plate empty, concern in her eyes that no 7-year-old should have to feel. "Yeah, bug, I'm good." He stood collecting her plate. "You got everything? Backpack, homework folder?" "Yep." "Jacket?" "Supposed to rain later." "Got it." "All right, let's roll." The drive to Woodland Elementary took 18 minutes in morning traffic. Liam had it down to a science, which lanes to use, which lights to catch, which shortcuts worked on which days. He pulled up to the drop-off circle at 7:44, 1 minute ahead of schedule. Emma unbuckled her seatbelt, but didn't immediately jump out like some of the other kids. Instead, she turned to him, serious. "You're picking me up today, right? Not after care?" 3:30 sharp, I'll be here." "Promise?" Liam looked at her, this small person who'd become his entire world, and felt the weight of that question in his bones. She'd asked it every single day since Sarah died. At first, he'd thought it was just adjustment. Then he'd realized it was something deeper. A fear that everyone she loved would eventually disappear. He reached out and squeezed her hand. "I promise. I always come back." Emma nodded, satisfied, and climbed out of the car. She slung her backpack over one shoulder, gave him a wave, and joined the stream of kids heading toward the school entrance. Liam watched until she disappeared inside, then pulled away. 8:02 a.m. He'd hit some traffic on the way to the office, but he'd still make it by 8:30, still on schedule. Morrison and Klein Marketing occupied 3 floors of a glass and steel building in downtown Seattle. The company specialized in digital campaigns for mid-tier corporate clients, boring, steady work that paid the bills and occasionally required actual creativity. Liam worked in client services, which was a polite way of saying he managed the impossible expectations of people who wanted Super Bowl quality ads on a public access budget. He was good at it. Not great, not exceptional, but solid, reliable. The kind of employee who didn't make waves but also didn't drop balls. In the 3 years since Sarah's death, he'd perfected the art of being professionally invisible. He badged into the building at 8:28, took the elevator to the 6th floor, and made it to his desk at 8:30 on the dot. Perfect. His cubicle was standard-issue corporate, gray walls, white desk, one monitor, and a single framed photo of Emma from last year's school picture day. No personal items, no decorations, nothing that suggested he had a life outside these walls. Because he didn't. Liam logged into his computer and pulled up his email. 47 unread messages since he'd logged off at 5 p.m. yesterday. He started working through them methodically, responding where needed, flagging items for follow-up, deleting the usual spam about company picnics and team-building events he would never attend. An hour passed. Then another. Around 10:30, his desk phone rang. He picked it up without looking at the caller ID. Liam Carter. Liam, it's Jennifer from HR. Her voice had that carefully neutral tone that office workers used when delivering news that was either very good or very bad. Do you have a minute? Sure, what's up? Ms. Sinclair would like to see you in her office at 11 o'clock. Liam's hand tightened on the phone. Ava Sinclair? Yes, the director. Did she say what it's about? Just that she wants to discuss your performance review. Performance review? Liam's mind raced. Those weren't scheduled for another 2 months, and they certainly weren't conducted by the company director. That was a manager-level task. Liam, you still there? Yeah, I'll be there. Great. 6th floor, corner office, see you at 11. She hung up. Liam set the phone down slowly, staring at his monitor without really seeing it. Ava Sinclair wanted to see him, personally, about his performance. That wasn't good. Ava Sinclair had taken over as Morrison & Klein's director 4 months ago, brought in by the board after the previous director had retired. She was 30 years old, a billionaire heiress who'd made her fortune in tech before deciding to dabble in marketing. The rumor mill said she was brilliant, ruthless, and allergic to inefficiency. Liam had seen her exactly twice, once during the all-hands meeting when she'd introduced herself, and once in passing in the lobby. Both times, she'd been wearing clothes that probably cost more than his monthly rent, and an expression that suggested she was mentally calculating everyone's value to the company down to the decimal point. She was not the kind of person who called random mid-level employees into her office for friendly chats. The next 30 minutes crawled by. Liam tried to focus on work, but his brain kept spinning through worst-case scenarios. Was he getting fired? Had he screwed up a client account? Was this about the sick days he'd taken when Emma had the flu last month? At 10:55, he stood, straightened his tie, and headed for the elevator. The 6th floor was executive territory, quieter, cleaner, more expensive. Everything from the carpet to the artwork screamed money and power. Liam had been up here exactly once before, during his initial interview 4 years ago. Ava Sinclair's office was at the end of a long hallway. The door was open. He knocked anyway. Come in. Liam stepped inside and immediately felt underdressed. The office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seattle skyline, modern furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, and enough square footage to fit his entire apartment twice over. Ava Sinclair sat behind a glass desk, typing something on her laptop. She didn't look up immediately, which Liam recognized as a power move. Let the employees stand there. Let them feel small. He stood there and felt small. Finally, she closed the laptop and looked at him. Ava Sinclair was beautiful in the way that extremely wealthy people often were. Not just genetics, but the kind of beauty that came from personal trainers, expensive skincare, and perfect lighting. Dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, sharp cheekbones, gray eyes that missed nothing. She wore a black blazer over a white blouse, minimal jewelry, and an expression of cool appraisal. Liam Carter, she said, have a seat. He sat in one of the chairs across from her desk, forcing himself to maintain eye contact. Thank you for coming up on short notice. Her voice was smooth, professional, giving nothing away. I've been reviewing personnel files and yours caught my attention. Okay, Liam said carefully. You've been with Morrison & Klein for 4 years. Client services. Satisfactory performance reviews across the board. No disciplinary issues. No complaints from clients. She paused. You're also never at any company events. You leave every day at 5 p.m. sharp. And according to your manager, you've turned down multiple opportunities for advancement. Liam's stomach tightened. I have personal obligations. So I've gathered. Ava leaned back in her chair, studying him. Tell me about those. I have a daughter. She's 7. I'm a single parent. I see. And where's her mother? The question landed like a punch. Liam kept his expression neutral, but inside something cold and hard settled into place. She passed away 3 years ago. Ava's expression didn't change. No sympathy, no discomfort, nothing. Just that same cool appraisal. I'm sorry for your loss, but I have to ask, Do you think that's sustainable long-term from a career perspective? Excuse me? Being unavailable for evening events, leaving at 5 o'clock every day regardless of workload, refusing promotions that would require more flexibility. She ticked them off like items on a grocery list. You're limiting your potential. Liam felt heat rising in his chest, but he kept his voice level. With all due respect, Ms. Sinclair, I complete my work. I meet my deadlines. I've never missed a client deliverable. You're doing the bare minimum. I'm doing my job. Exactly. Ava stood, walking around her desk to lean against it, arms crossed. The movement put her closer to him, and Liam had the distinct impression it was intentional. You're smart, Liam. Your work is solid, but you're coasting, and in my company, coasting isn't enough. Then fire me. The words were out before he could stop them. Ava raised an eyebrow. Is that what you want? No, but I'm not going to apologize for prioritizing my daughter. I'm not asking you to apologize. She tilted her head slightly. I'm asking you to consider whether you're doing her any favors by staying stagnant. Better position, better salary, better future for both of you. At the cost of never seeing her. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. They stared at each other. The silence stretched, taut and uncomfortable. Then Ava's expression shifted, just slightly, but enough that Liam noticed. The cool professionalism softened into something else. Something that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. You're not married, she said. It wasn't a question. No. Dating anyone? Liam blinked. I'm sorry? It's a simple question. Are you seeing anyone? I don't see how that's relevant to my job performance. Ava smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. I'm trying to understand your whole situation. Work-life balance, personal support systems. Whether there are ways the company could help. Bullshit. Liam knew manipulation when he saw it, and this was manipulation dressed up in corporate speak. I'm not dating anyone, he said flatly. I don't have time. That's unfortunate. Ava straightened, moving back toward her desk. Everyone needs balance, even single parents. She picked up a tablet, swiped through something, then set it down. There's a client dinner next Thursday. Potential new account, very high profile. I'd like you there. I can't do evenings. I have to pick up my daughter from school. It's one dinner, Liam. Surely you can arrange childcare for one evening. I don't use childcare. Never? Never. Ava's eyes narrowed. That seems extreme. That's my choice. It's also limiting your career. This dinner could mean significant opportunities for you, a chance to be visible to the right people. To show you're a team player. There it was. The implicit threat wrapped in opportunity. Liam stood. With respect, Ms. Sinclair, I'm not interested in opportunities that require me to break promises to my daughter. Who said anything about breaking promises? I pick her up at 3:30 every day. I promised her I would. I don't break my promises. Ava stepped closer. Too close. Well inside professional distance. Liam could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral. What if I made it worth your while? Her voice had dropped, gone softer. This isn't just a client dinner, Liam. It's a private event. Small, intimate, just a few key people. And there it was. The shift from professional to personal. The suggestion hanging in the air like smoke. Liam's jaw tightened. I'm not interested. You haven't even heard the details. I don't need to. Are you always this stubborn? When it matters? Yes. Ava's smile was sharp now, predatory. I like that. Most people just say yes to me. Then you should appreciate the novelty of someone who doesn't. Oh, I do. She reached out, and for one surreal moment, Liam thought she was going to touch his arm. Instead, she plucked an invisible piece of lint from his shoulder, her fingers lingering just a second too long. Think about the dinner, Liam. It could change things for you. My answer won't change. We'll see. It wasn't a dismissal, but Liam took it as one. He turned and walked out of the office, his heart pounding, hands clenched into fists. He didn't start shaking until he was back in the elevator. What the hell just happened? Ava Sinclair had just, what? Hit on him? Propositioned him? Threatened his job unless he attended some private dinner that was clearly not about clients? Liam leaned against the elevator wall, closing his eyes. This was bad. This was really, really bad. Because he knew how this went. He'd heard the stories, seen it happen to other people. Boss makes advances. Employee refuses. Employee suddenly has performance issues. Employee gets fired, and he couldn't afford to get fired. Emma depended on him. The elevator dinged. Liam opened his eyes, straightened his shoulders, and walked back to his desk. He had 4 hours until pickup. 4 hours to figure out what the hell he was going to do. But first, he had work to finish. Because whatever else happened, Liam Carter kept his promises. And he'd promised Emma he would always come back. Liam didn't tell anyone about the meeting. He sat at his desk for the next 3 hours, responding to emails and reviewing client presentations with a focus that felt manufactured, like he was performing the role of normal employee who hasn't just been sexually harassed by his boss. His hands moved across the keyboard. His eyes tracked the words on the screen. But his brain was somewhere else entirely, replaying every second of that conversation, trying to figure out if he'd misread the situation. He hadn't. He knew he hadn't. The way Ava had looked at him, the questions about his personal life, the dinner invitation that was clearly not about business, the touch on his shoulder that lingered too long. It had been completely, unmistakably inappropriate. And terrifying, because Liam knew the math. Single father, average job, no savings to speak of. Against a billionaire with the board of directors on speed dial. The power differential wasn't just vast, it was insurmountable. At 4:47, he shut down his computer, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the elevator. A few coworkers were still at their desks, grinding away on whatever deadline was looming. One of them, Marcus, a guy from the creative team, looked up as Liam passed. Heading out already? There was no judgment in the question, but Liam heard it anyway. The implication that leaving at 5 o'clock was somehow early, as if working past the official end of the day was a badge of honor rather than a failure of time management. Yeah, have a good one. He didn't wait for a response. The drive to Emma's school took 22 minutes instead of the usual 18 because some jackass had decided to rear-end someone on I-5, turning 2 lanes into a parking lot. Liam gripped the steering wheel and tried not to think about the meeting, tried not to think about Ava Sinclair's smile, tried not to think about what came next. He failed on all counts. By the time he pulled into the school pickup line at 3:31, his jaw ached from clenching. Emma appeared moments later, backpack bouncing, talking animatedly to another girl before breaking away and jogging to the car. She yanked open the door and climbed in, bringing with her the smell of crayons and playground mulch. Hey, Bug, how was school? Good. I got 100 on my math test. The tension in Liam's chest released a fraction. That's awesome, I knew you would. Mrs. Patterson put a gold star on it and everything. Emma pulled the test from her backpack, proudly displaying the 100% written in red marker at the top. Can we get pizza to celebrate? We had pizza 3 days ago. So? That was celebration pizza for finishing my book report. This is different celebration pizza. Liam glanced at her in the rearview mirror, this kid who found reasons to celebrate the small victories, and felt something crack open in his chest. You know what? Sure. Pizza it is. Yes, Emma pumped her fist. Can we go to Sal's? We always go to Sal's. Because Sal's is the best. It wasn't, actually. Sal's was mediocre at best, the kind of neighborhood pizza place that survived on loyalty rather than quality. But it was cheap, it was close to their apartment, and Emma loved it, which made it the best by default. They drove there in comfortable silence, Emma humming something that might have been a pop song or might have been completely made up. Liam parked on the street, fed quarters into the meter, and followed his daughter inside. Sal's Pizza had exactly 6 tables, red checkered tablecloths that had probably been there since the 90s, and a permanent smell of garlic and oregano. The guy behind the counter, not Sal, who died years ago, but his nephew Tony, waved when they walked in. The Carters! Haven't seen you in a few days. Been busy, Liam said. Can we get a medium pepperoni? You got it, 20 minutes. They slid into a booth by the window. Emma immediately started drawing on the paper placemat with the crayons Tony had brought over, her tongue poking out in concentration. Liam watched her, trying to let the normalcy of it settle over him like a blanket. It didn't work. Dad? You okay? He blinked. Emma was staring at him with those 2 observant eyes, the ones that saw more than any 7-year-old should have to see. Yeah, Bug, just thinking about work stuff. Boring stuff? Very boring. Then stop thinking about it. She said it like the solution was obvious, and maybe it was. Maybe he was the one overcomplicating things. Except he wasn't, because this wasn't going away. The pizza arrived. They ate, Emma chattering about recess and how Tyler Morrison had tried to convince everyone he could do a backflip, but actually just fell on his butt, and Liam made appropriate sounds of interest while his mind churned. What were his options? He could ignore the whole thing. Pretend the meeting never happened. Hope Ava lost interest and moved on to her next target. Except women like Ava Sinclair didn't just lose interest. They doubled down. He could go to HR, file a complaint, put it on the record. Except HR worked for the company, and the company was currently run by the woman he'd be complaining about. He'd seen how those situations played out. The complaint would disappear into a black hole of investigation, and he'd quietly be managed out within 6 months. He could quit, except he couldn't afford to quit. Not without another job lined up, and finding a new job that paid what Morrison and Klein paid and had the schedule flexibility he needed. That was a fantasy. So what then? He was still thinking about it when they got home, when Emma settled onto the couch with her homework and Liam started cleaning up the dinner dishes they'd skipped the night before. The apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in. His phone buzzed. He dried his hands and picked it up, expecting a spam call, or maybe a reminder about Emma's dentist appointment next week. Instead, it was an email. From Ava Sinclair. Subject line, a Thursday dinner. Details. Liam's stomach dropped. He opened it. Liam, per our conversation this morning, I'm attaching details for Thursday's client dinner. Reservations are at 7 p.m. at Canlis. Dress is business formal. This is an excellent opportunity for you to expand your network and demonstrate your value to the company. I look forward to seeing you there. Best, Ava Sinclair Director, Morrison and Klein Marketing. Liam read it twice, then a third time. The thing that got him, the thing that made his hand shake as he set the phone down, was how normal it sounded. Professional, courteous. The kind of email a boss might send to any employee about any legitimate work event. Except it wasn't legitimate. And they both knew it. She was boxing him in, creating a paper trail that made him look unreasonable if he refused. After all, what kind of employee turns down a networking opportunity with important clients? What kind of team player says no when the director personally invites them? The kind who knows exactly what this dinner actually is. Liam deleted the email without responding. His phone buzzed again almost immediately. Another email, same sender. Liam, I didn't receive a confirmation. Please reply by end of day tomorrow to confirm your attendance. Ava. This time, the signature was just her first name. A subtle shift toward familiarity that made his skin crawl. He shoved the phone into his pocket and went back to the dishes, scrubbing plates with more force than necessary. Dad, you're going to break that. He looked down. He'd been washing the same plate for 30 seconds, the sponge squeaking against ceramic. Sorry, Bug, just distracted. Emma had abandoned her homework and was now watching him with concern that no kid should have to feel for their parent. Is work stuff bad? It's complicated. That's what grown-ups say when stuff is bad, but they don't want to talk about it. Liam set the plate in the drying rack and turned to face her. You're too smart for your own good, you know that? Mom used to say that too. The mention of Sarah hit him like it always did, unexpected and sharp, even 3 years later. Emma didn't talk about her mom often. When she did, it was usually in passing, small observations like this one. Liam crossed to the couch and sat down next to her. She was right. You are too smart. Is someone being mean to you at work? The question caught him off guard. What makes you think that? Emma shrugged. You look like I look when Megan is being mean at school. Who's Megan? This girl in my class, she's not very nice. What does she do? Says stuff. Like how my lunch is weird because I eat the same thing every day. Or how my shoes are old. Emma picked at the corner of her homework page. She smiles when she says it, like she's being friendly. But she's not. Liam felt something cold settle in his chest. His 7-year-old daughter had just perfectly described passive-aggressive bullying, and apparently she'd learned to recognize it from experience. Have you talked to your teacher? Mrs. Patterson says Megan is just trying to make friends and doesn't know the right way to do it. which was code for "we're not going to do anything about it." "You want me to talk to her?" "No." Emma looked horrified. "That would make it worse. I just ignore her." "That's probably smart. Is that what you're going to do? Ignore the person being mean?" Liam looked at his daughter, this tiny human who'd somehow figured out the core problem in under 2 minutes and wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. "I'm trying to." "Does it work for grown-ups better than it works for kids?" "I don't know yet." Emma nodded, satisfied with the honesty, and went back to her homework. Liam sat there for another moment, then stood and finished the dishes. That night, after Emma was asleep, he pulled out his laptop and did something he probably shouldn't have done. He Googled Ava Sinclair. The results were extensive: Forbes profile, LinkedIn, multiple articles in business publications, a Wikipedia page that was probably maintained by her PR team, photos from charity galas and tech conferences, always perfectly composed, always in control. He found an interview from 2 years ago, back when she'd sold her first company for an undisclosed sum that financial bloggers estimated somewhere north of $200 million. The interviewer had asked her about work-life balance. "I don't believe in balance," Ava had said. "I believe in commitment. If you want something, you take it. If someone isn't willing to give you everything, they're not worth your time." Liam closed the laptop. He was so screwed. The next day at work felt like walking through a minefield. Every time someone walked past his cubicle, he tensed. Every email notification made his heart rate spike. He kept waiting for Ava to appear, or for another summons to her office, or for some new pressure point she'd discovered. But nothing happened. Radio silence, which was somehow worse than confrontation, because now he was just waiting. At lunch, he sat in his car in the parking garage and stared at his phone. The email from Ava sat in his inbox, unanswered. The deadline she'd given him, end of day, was approaching. He should respond, should craft some polite professional excuse. Prior commitment, family obligation, something that couldn't be argued with, except anything he said could be used against him later. Liam isn't a team player. Liam doesn't prioritize the company. Liam turned down a direct request from the director. His phone rang, making him jump. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, then did at the last second. "Hello? Mr. Carter? This is Woodland Elementary, Emma's school." His heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," the woman said quickly. "But she's in the nurse's office. Says her stomach hurts. We think it might be good if you could come pick her up." Liam was already starting his car. "I'm on my way. 20 minutes. Thank you. We'll see you soon." He hung up, threw the car into reverse, and was out of the parking garage before his brain caught up with his body. Emma was sick. That was all that mattered. Work could wait. Everything could wait. He made it to the school in 16 minutes. Emma was sitting in the nurse's office, looking small and pale on the plastic chair. When she saw him, her face crumpled. "Hey, Bug, what's going on?" "My stomach really hurts." The nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, handed Liam a clipboard. "No fever, but she's been complaining of nausea and cramping. Could be something she ate, or possibly a stomach bug going around." Liam signed the checkout form and helped Emma to her feet. She leaned against him, which she rarely did anymore, and that scared him more than anything. "Let's get you home." The drive back to the apartment was quiet. Emma sat in the back seat with her eyes closed, occasionally pressing her hand to her stomach. Liam kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, mentally running through the checklist. Stomach bug, probably. Keep her hydrated. Crackers if she could keep them down. Monitor for fever. He got her settled on the couch with a blanket and a bucket, just in case. Then he texted his manager. "Family emergency. Had to leave early. Will make up the time." The response came back almost immediately. "No problem. Hope everything's okay." Liam set the phone down and went to get Emma some water and saltines. She nibbled on a cracker, managed half a glass of water, then curled up under the blanket and closed her eyes. "You need anything else, Bug? Can you stay here? Don't go back to work." "I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" That word again, the one that carried so much weight. "I promise." Emma relaxed, reassured, and drifted off to sleep. Liam sat in the chair across from the couch, watching her breathe, and felt the full weight of his situation crash down on him. He couldn't lose this job. If he lost this job, he lost the health insurance, the steady paycheck, the ability to keep the apartment, keep Emma in her school, keep their life together from falling apart. But if he went to that dinner, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Another email from Ava. Liam, I noticed you left early today. I hope everything is all right. Please remember to confirm for Thursday when you return to the office tomorrow. Ava. The message was polite, concerned even, but the subtext was clear. I'm watching you. I notice when you leave. I'm keeping track. Liam's hands tightened on the phone. Emma stirred in her sleep, making a small sound of discomfort. He stood, walked to the kitchen, and pulled up the email on his phone. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He could do this. He could type out a response. Thank you for the invitation, but I'm unable to attend due to prior commitments. Professional, clean, done. But his fingers wouldn't move, because he knew what would happen next. The follow-up questions, the pressure, the slow erosion of his position at the company until he had nothing left. Or he could go to the dinner, show up, be professional. Make it clear through his actions and his words that this was business only, that he wasn't interested in whatever else she was offering. Except that was naive, bordering on delusional. Men didn't get to set boundaries with powerful women any more than women got to set boundaries with powerful men. Power was power, and it didn't care about gender. He was still standing there, phone in hand, when Emma woke up. Dad? He set the phone down immediately and went to her. Hey, how you feeling? Better, a little. That's good. You want more water? She nodded. He got her a fresh glass, and she drank it slowly, color starting to return to her cheeks. Am I going to school tomorrow? Let's see how you feel in the morning. Okay. She paused. Did you get in trouble for leaving work? No, Bug. You're more important than work. But what if they're mad? Then they're mad. Doesn't change what's important. Emma seemed to consider this, then nodded. Mom used to say you were the most stubborn person she ever met. Liam smiled despite everything. She wasn't wrong. Is that why you won't go to the thing? He blinked. What thing? The work thing, the dinner. I heard you talking about it last night. Of course she had. Kids heard everything, even when you thought they were asleep or distracted. Yeah, that's part of it. What's the other part? How did he explain this to a 7-year-old? How did he put into words that sometimes people in power use that power in ways that were wrong, that made you feel small and trapped and scared? The person who invited me, she makes me uncomfortable. Like Megan makes me uncomfortable? Kind of like that. Yeah. Then you definitely shouldn't go. Emma said it with the absolute certainty of a child who saw the world in clear terms. Mean people were mean. You avoided them when you could. Simple. It's more complicated than that when you're a grown-up. Why? Because she's my boss. And if I don't do what she wants, she could fire me. That's not fair. No, it's not. Can't you tell someone? Like I'm supposed to tell Mrs. Patterson when someone's being mean? I could. But remember how Mrs. Patterson didn't really help with Megan? Oh. Emma's face fell. So grown-ups don't help either. Sometimes they don't. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Emma said very quietly, Are we going to be okay? And there it was. The question under all the other questions. The fear that lived in both of them, the legacy of loss that never quite went away. Liam pulled her into a hug. Yes, we're going to be okay, I promise. Even if you lose your job? Even then, it might be hard for a while, but we'll figure it out. We always do. Emma hugged him back, fierce and tight. I don't want you to do something that makes you uncomfortable just because of me. Bug, I mean it. Mom wouldn't want that. The invocation of Sarah hit him hard, because Emma was right. Sarah would have told him to quit, to walk away, to never compromise himself for a paycheck. But Sarah had also never been a single parent living paycheck to paycheck in one of the most expensive cities in the country. Let me worry about the grown-up stuff, okay? You just focus on feeling better, okay? Emma pulled back, studying his face. But you're not going to that dinner, right? Liam looked at his daughter, at the trust in her eyes, and made a decision. No, I'm not going. Good. She settled back under the blanket, satisfied. Liam stood and walked to the kitchen, picked up his phone, and opened the email. His response was short. Ms. Sinclair, thank you for the invitation, but I'm unable to attend Thursday's dinner. I have a prior commitment that I cannot break. Best, Liam Carter. He hit send before he could second guess himself. The reply came back in less than 5 minutes. Liam, I'm disappointed. This was an important opportunity. I hope your prior commitment is worth the career impact. We'll need to discuss your priorities when you return to the office. Ava Liam read it 3 times, then set the phone down. He'd just painted a target on his back, and they both knew it. But he'd also kept his promise to Emma, and in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. Emma's stomach bug turned out to be exactly that. 24 hours of misery followed by a miraculous recovery that had her bouncing around the apartment by Friday morning, demanding pancakes and asking if she could have a sleepover at her friend Zoe's house. Liam, on the other hand, spent those 24 hours in a state of low-grade dread, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It didn't drop Friday, or over the weekend. By Monday morning, he'd almost convinced himself that maybe Ava had moved on. Maybe she'd found some other target for her attention. Maybe the whole thing would just fade away into the background noise of office politics he usually managed to avoid. He should have known better. The email came at 9:47 a.m., while he was in the middle of reviewing a client proposal for a regional grocery chain that wanted to rebrand their organic produce line. Liam, please come to my office at 10 a.m. Ava Sinclair. No pleasantries. No context. Just a summons. Liam's stomach twisted. He glanced at the clock. 13 minutes. Around him, the office hummed with its usual Monday morning energy. Keyboards clicking, phones ringing, someone laughing at something in the break room. Normal life, carrying on like the floor wasn't about to drop out from under him. He stood, straightened his tie, and headed for the elevator. This time, when he knocked on Ava's office door, she didn't make him wait. Come in. He stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind him with a finality that made his skin prickle. Ava was standing by the window, her back to him, silhouetted against the gray Seattle skyline. She was wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, her dark hair pulled back in that same severe ponytail. You missed an important dinner Thursday night, she said without turning around. I had a prior commitment. Your daughter. Yes. Who was sick. Ava turned to face him, and her expression was unreadable. I heard. I hope she's feeling better. The concern sounded genuine, which somehow made it worse. Like she was trying to be reasonable, trying to show she cared, when they both knew this conversation had nothing to do with Emma's well-being. She's fine. Thank you. Good. Ava moved toward her desk, not sitting, just leaning against it in that same calculated way she had during their first meeting. Liam, I want to be direct with you. You're wasting your potential here. We've had this conversation, and clearly it didn't sink in. Her voice hardened slightly. Thursday's dinner wasn't just about networking. It was about showing me that you're willing to invest in your career, that you can be flexible when it matters. With respect, Ms. Sinclair, my daughter being sick isn't a flexibility issue. I'm not talking about Thursday specifically. I'm talking about a pattern. Ava ticked items off on her fingers. You leave at 5 o'clock every day. You never attend company events. You turned down the promotion to senior account manager last year. You've made it abundantly clear that this job is just a paycheck to you. That's not true, isn't it? She tilted her head. Tell me, Liam, what do you actually want from this company? The question caught him off guard. I want to do my job well and provide for my daughter. That's it? That's your ambition? That's enough. For you, maybe. Ava pushed off the desk, closing the distance between them. But I'm building something here. A culture of excellence, and I need people who want more than just enough. Then I'm probably not the right fit. You could be. Her voice softened, and there was that shift again, the one that made alarm bells go off in his head. You're smart. You're talented. You just need someone to help you see your potential. I appreciate that, but I could mentor you. Ava took another step closer. One-on-one. Help you develop the skills you need to move up, to really make something of yourself. Liam's jaw tightened. I'm not interested in mentorship. Why not? Because I know what you're actually offering. The words hung in the air between them. Ava's eyes narrowed slightly, but her expression didn't change otherwise. And what do you think I'm offering? This was it. The moment where he either backed down or burned every bridge he had left. Liam chose honesty, something inappropriate. For a long moment, Ava just stared at him. Then she laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no humor. You think very highly of yourself. This isn't about me thinking highly of myself. It's about you crossing professional boundaries. Professional boundaries. Ava repeated the words like they were foreign. You think I'm, what exactly? Harassing you? Yes. Us. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation. Ava's expression hardened. You're imagining things, Liam. I've been nothing but professional. You asked about my relationship status in our first meeting. You invited me to a private dinner under false pretenses. You've been pressuring me to compromise my personal boundaries for weeks now. I've been trying to help you advance your career. By asking if I'm dating anyone? By understanding your situation so I can provide appropriate support. Ava's voice was ice cold now, all pretense of warmth gone. If you're interpreting normal professional concern as something inappropriate, that says more about you than it does about me. And there it was. The gaslighting, the reversal, the implication that he was the problem. Liam had known it was coming, had prepared for it, but actually hearing it still felt like a punch to the gut. I'm not imagining anything, he said quietly. And we both know it. Ava studied him for a long moment. Then she walked back to her desk, picked up a folder, and held it out to him. This is your performance review. I suggest you read it carefully. Liam took the folder, already knowing what he'd find inside. He opened it anyway. Employee Performance Review. Liam Carter. Overall rating. Needs improvement. Areas of concern. Lack of flexibility and availability. Limited engagement with team-building activities. Declining productivity metrics. Insufficient initiative in pursuing advancement opportunities. Recommendation. 30-day performance improvement plan with weekly check-ins. Liam read it twice, his hand steady even as his heart raced. Every single item was subjective. Every single criticism was designed to be impossible to disprove. This is retaliation, he said flatly. This is documentation of legitimate performance concerns. I've never had a negative review in 4 years. Perhaps your previous managers were too lenient. Ava sat down behind her desk, every inch the professional executive now. I have higher standards. If you can't meet them, we'll need to have a different conversation. Liam set the folder on her desk. I'd like to speak to HR. By all means, Jennifer's office is on the 4th floor. Ava's smile was sharp. Though I should mention that HR reports to me, and I've already briefed them on my concerns about your performance. Of course she had. Liam stood there, looking at this woman who held all the cards, who had the power and the money and the institutional backing to destroy him without breaking a sweat, and felt something shift inside him. He'd been scared, had been calculating, trying to find the safe path through this minefield. But there was no safe path. There never had been. I need to tell you something, he said, and I need you to actually hear it. Ava raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. 3 years ago, my wife died. Sarah. She was 30 years old. We'd been married for 6 years. She was at the grocery store picking up stuff for dinner, and she had a brain aneurysm. Just collapsed in the produce section. By the time the ambulance got there, she was gone. Ava's expression flickered, just for a second, but Liam kept going. Emma was 4. She barely understood what death meant. For months, she kept asking when Mommy was coming home. And I had to keep explaining that Mommy wasn't coming home, that it was just us now. His voice was steady, but his hands had started to shake. He shoved them in his pockets. I made her a promise. Every single day when I drop her off at school, I promise her I'll come back. I promise I'll pick her up. I promise I'll be there. Because that's the only thing that makes her feel safe, knowing that I keep my promises. Liam, I'm not finished. The words came out harder than he intended, but he didn't soften them. Every decision I've made for the past 3 years has been about keeping those promises. Every time I leave at 5 o'clock, it's because I promised I'd pick her up at 3:30. Every time I turn down an after-hours event, it's because I promised I'd be home for dinner. Every single thing you've documented in that review is me being a father. Ava opened her mouth, but Liam didn't give her a chance. And I know what you're doing. I know exactly what you're doing. You're using my position, my responsibilities, my need for this job as leverage to get me to do what you want, to attend your dinners, to accept your mentorship, to blur the lines between professional and personal until I'm too compromised to object. That's not that. Yes, it is. Liam's voice was quiet now, but it carried a weight that filled the room. And the worst part is that you know it. You know you have all the power here. You know I can't fight back without risking everything. You know that even having this conversation could get me fired. Ava stood, her face flushed. You're way out of line. No, you are. Liam met her gaze and didn't look away. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what title you hold. I don't care if you own this entire building. You don't get to use your power to manipulate people. You don't get to punish me for having boundaries. And you sure as hell don't get to make me choose between my daughter and my job. I never asked you to choose. You've asked me every single day since you got here. They stared at each other across the expanse of her desk. Ava's jaw was tight, her hands clenched at her sides. I could fire you right now, she said softly. I know. You'd have nothing, no job, no income, no health insurance for your daughter. I know that too. Then why are you doing this? Liam took a breath. Because I made Emma a different promise. I promised her that I would never compromise who I am just to make someone else comfortable. That I would never let anyone make me feel small. That I would always stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. That's naive. Maybe, but it's also the truth. He picked up the performance review folder and held it out to her. Do what you need to do, Ms. Sinclair. Write me up. Put me on a performance plan. Fire me. Whatever makes you feel better about this situation. But I'm not going to your dinners. I'm not accepting your mentorship. And I'm not pretending this is anything other than what it is. Ava didn't take the folder. She just stood there, staring at him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. You're throwing away your career, she said finally. I'm protecting the only thing that actually matters. Your daughter. My integrity. Liam set the folder back on her desk. Emma's part of it. But it's bigger than that. I've already lost the person I loved most in the world. I've already survived the worst thing I can imagine. You don't have anything to threaten me with that's scarier than what I've already lived through. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Ava walked back to the window, arms crossed, staring out at the city. I didn't realize, she said quietly, about your wife. I mean, I knew you were a single parent, but I didn't know the circumstances. Would it have made a difference? I don't know. She turned to look at him. Maybe. It shouldn't matter. My personal situation doesn't change whether your behavior is appropriate or not. Ava flinched. Actually flinched. I wasn't trying to harass you. Then what were you trying to do? I don't know. She sounded tired suddenly, all the sharp edges worn down. You're right about the power dynamic, about the position I put you in. I saw someone talented who seemed to be wasting it, and I thought if I could just push you a little, you'd see what you could be. By inviting me to private dinners? That was... Ava stopped, then laughed bitterly. Yeah, that was inappropriate, I know that. So why did you do it? Honestly, because I'm used to getting what I want, and I wanted you to see things my way. She met his eyes. That's not an excuse, it's just the truth. Liam didn't know what to say to that. This wasn't how he'd expected this conversation to go. He'd expected anger, retaliation, immediate termination, not this strange, uncomfortable honesty. I'm going to withdraw the performance review, Ava said abruptly. It's not fair, you're right. Everything in it is just you being a parent. That shouldn't be penalized. Okay. And I'll stop with the dinner invitations and the mentorship offers and all of it. She picked up the folder and dropped it in the trash can beside her desk. I'm sorry. For making you uncomfortable, for using my position inappropriately, for not seeing how my actions were affecting you. Liam searched her face for signs of manipulation, for the angle, for the trap, but all he saw was someone who looked genuinely shaken. Thank you, he said carefully. Don't thank me. I'm the one who created this mess. Ava ran a hand over her face. You should go to HR anyway. Document this conversation. Protect yourself. Will you retaliate if I do? No, she said it firmly. I promise I won't. And unlike some people, I actually keep my promises. The words had an edge of self-mockery that surprised him. Liam nodded slowly. All right, I'll think about it. Do more than think. Actually do it. Ava moved back to her desk, suddenly all business again. And Liam, for what it's worth, your daughter is lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Yeah. Ava picked up her laptop, opening it. I'm starting to see that. It felt like a dismissal. Liam turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Miss Sinclair? Ava? Just call me Ava. Ava, then. He paused. Thank you for hearing me. A lot of people in your position wouldn't have. A lot of people in my position wouldn't have created this situation in the first place. She looked up at him. I need to do better. Be better. This conversation, it showed me things I didn't want to see about myself. Liam didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and left. The elevator ride down felt surreal. He just told off his boss, the billionaire director of his company, and somehow still had a job. More than that, he'd gotten something resembling an apology and a promise that things would change. He didn't trust it, couldn't afford to trust it, but for the moment at least he'd survived. Back at his desk, he sat down and just breathed for a minute. His hands were still shaking, his heart was still racing. But underneath the adrenaline, there was something else. Relief. He'd said what needed to be said, had drawn the line, had refused to compromise, even when it would have been easier, safer, smarter to just go along. His phone buzzed. Text from Emma's school. Reminder. Parent-teacher conference sign-ups close Friday. Please schedule your slot. Right. Parent-teacher conferences. Another thing on the endless list of responsibilities that made up his life. Liam opened the scheduling link and picked a time. Thursday, 4 p.m. The same day and time as that dinner he'd refused. He smiled despite everything. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Work emails, client calls, a meeting about the grocery chain rebrand that ran 30 minutes too long. Normal stuff. The kind of boring, predictable routine that Liam had built his life around. At 4:47, he shut down his computer and headed out. Marcus looked up as he passed. Early day again? Same time as always, Liam said. Must be nice. There was something in Marcus's tone, not quite resentment, but close to it. Liam had heard it before from coworkers who stayed late, who worked weekends, who measured their worth by their hours logged. Usually, he ignored it. Today, he stopped. You got kids, Marcus? Marcus blinked. Yeah. 2 boys, 6 and 9. When's the last time you had dinner with them on a weeknight? I don't know. Last week sometime? You should do it more often. Liam adjusted his bag on his shoulder. Trust me, the work will still be here tomorrow. Your kids won't stay 6 and 9 forever. He left before Marcus could respond. The pickup line at Emma's school was its usual chaos. Minivans jockeying for position, kids streaming out in waves, crossing guards blowing whistles. Liam found his spot, pulled in, and waited. Emma appeared at 3:32, talking to Zoe and another girl Liam didn't recognize. When she saw his car, she waved goodbye to her friends and jogged over. Hey, Bug. Good day? Really good. We got to do science experiments, and I made a volcano that actually erupted, and Mrs. Patterson said it was the best one in the class. The words tumbled out in an excited rush as she buckled her seatbelt. That's awesome. Tell me about it. Emma launched into a detailed explanation of baking soda and vinegar ratios that Liam only half understood, but listened to with complete attention. This was the good stuff. The reason he left at 5 o'clock every day, the reason he'd drawn that line with Ava, the reason he kept fighting to protect this small, precious piece of normalcy. They stopped at the grocery store on the way home. They needed milk and eggs and about a dozen other things. Emma pushed the cart while Liam grabbed items, and she only asked for candy twice, which was a new record. At home, she settled in with homework while Liam started dinner. Spaghetti tonight, from a jar because he was not about to pretend he knew how to make sauce from scratch. Emma finished her math worksheet, showed it to him for approval, then disappeared into her room to play. Liam stood at the stove, stirring pasta, and let himself feel it. The weight of the day, the confrontation, the fear, the relief, all of it. He'd stood up to Ava Sinclair, and he'd survived. For now, at least. His phone buzzed. He picked it up, expecting another email from work, maybe a follow-up from Ava. Instead, It was from Jennifer in HR. Hi, Liam. Ava mentioned you might want to schedule a meeting to discuss some workplace concerns. I have availability this week if you'd like to talk. Let me know what works for you. Liam stared at the message. Ava had actually done it, had actually told HR to expect him, had actually followed through on her promise. Maybe she was serious about changing, or maybe this was just another way to document the situation, to cover her own tracks. Liam didn't know, but he typed out a response anyway. Thanks, Jennifer. How about Wednesday at 2 o'clock? The reply came back immediately. Perfect. See you then. Liam set the phone down and went back to the pasta, one step at a time. That was all he could do. Put one foot in front of the other and hope the ground didn't collapse beneath him. Dad, the water's boiling over! He jerked his attention back to the stove, where the pot was indeed bubbling over onto the burner. He grabbed it, moved it off the heat, and turned down the temperature. Thanks, Bug. You were distracted again. Yeah, sorry. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, studying him with those two wise eyes. Did the mean person at work stop being mean? Liam thought about it. Maybe. I don't know yet. What did you do? I told her the truth about Mom, about you, about why my promises matter. Did she listen? I think so, yeah. Emma nodded, satisfied. Good. People should listen when you tell them important stuff. They should. They don't always. But she did? She did. Then maybe she's not as mean as you thought. Liam looked at his daughter, this 7-year-old philosopher, and felt his chest tighten. Maybe not. Can we eat now? I'm starving. He laughed. Yeah, Bug. We can eat now. They ate dinner at the small table, Emma chattering about her volcano and recess and how Tyler Morrison had tried to do another backflip and fallen on his butt again. Liam listened and asked questions and felt the knot in his chest slowly loosen. This was enough. This right here, sitting at a table with his daughter, eating mediocre spaghetti, hearing about 7-year-old drama, this was everything. After dinner, after dishes, after bath time and story time and tucking Emma in, Liam sat on his pull-out couch with his laptop and pulled up the employee handbook. He found the section on workplace harassment. Read it carefully. Made notes. Then he opened a new document and started writing down everything that had happened, every conversation with Ava, every inappropriate comment, every email, everything he could remember with dates and times and exact quotes where possible. Documentation. That's what Jennifer would need. That's what would protect him if this went sideways. He worked on it for 2 hours until his eyes burned and his back ached from hunching over the laptop. When he finally closed the computer and pulled out the bed, he was exhausted. But he was also clear. He'd done the right thing. Whatever came next, he could handle it. Because he'd already survived the worst. And he'd do whatever it took to keep surviving, to keep showing up, to keep being the father Emma deserved. That was the only promise that mattered. And Liam Carter never broke his promises. Wednesday morning arrived with rain hammering against the apartment windows, the kind of Seattle downpour that turned the streets into rivers and made everything gray and miserable. Liam stood at the window with his coffee, watching water stream down the glass, and tried not to think about the meeting with HR scheduled for 2 p.m. He'd been trying not to think about it for 2 days straight. It wasn't working. Dad, I can't find my raincoat. Emma's voice pulled him back to the present. He set down his coffee and went to help her search, eventually finding the yellow raincoat stuffed in the back of her closet underneath a pile of stuffed animals that she claimed were hibernating. Why is it in there? I was playing Safari, Emma said, as if this explained everything. Of course you were. Liam helped her into the coat. Got your backpack? Yep. Lunch? Already in there. Homework folder? Emma patted her backpack. All set. The drive to school took longer than usual because everyone in Seattle apparently forgot how to drive the second rain started falling. Liam sat in traffic on Fifth Avenue, watching his dashboard clock tick closer to 8 o'clock, and tried to control his breathing. You're doing the thing again, Emma said from the back seat. What thing? The worry thing, where you grip the steering wheel really hard and breathe funny. Liam consciously loosened his grip. Sorry, Bug. Just thinking about work. Is it the mean lady? She's not... He stopped. Was Ava mean or just thoughtless? Entitled. Operating from a completely different reality where normal rules didn't apply? It's complicated. You're meeting with someone about it today, right? I heard you on the phone. Of course she had. Emma seemed to have radar for conversations Liam thought were private. Yeah, HR. That's the department that handles employee problems. Are you in trouble? No, I'm reporting something that happened. The inappropriate stuff. Liam glanced at her in the rearview mirror. How do you know that word? We had an assembly about appropriate and inappropriate touching. Mrs. Patterson said if anyone makes us uncomfortable, we should tell a grown-up. Emma paused. Is someone making you uncomfortable? Yes. And you're telling the HR grown-ups? That's the plan. Good. Emma nodded firmly. That's what you're supposed to do. If only it were that simple. Liam dropped her off at 7:58, 2 minutes late, but acceptable given the weather. Emma hugged him before getting out of the car, which she didn't always do anymore, and it made his throat tight. Love you, Bug. Love you too. Good luck with the HR people. Thanks. He watched her run through the rain to the school entrance, her yellow raincoat bright against the gray morning, and felt that familiar mix of pride and terror that came with being solely responsible for another human being. Then he drove to work. The office was quieter than usual, probably because half the staff had decided to work from home rather than deal with the commute in this weather. Liam settled at his desk, pulled up his email, and found a message from Ava sent at 6:47 a.m. Liam, I want you to know that I've spoken with Jennifer in HR and given her full context on our previous conversations. I've also made it clear that I take full responsibility for creating an uncomfortable work environment. Whatever you choose to report, you have my complete support. I've also been doing a lot of thinking about company culture and the changes we need to make. I'd like to discuss this with you after your HR meeting, if you're willing. No pressure, only if you're comfortable. Ava Liam read it 3 times, looking for the trap, the manipulation, the angle. He couldn't find one. That didn't mean it wasn't there. He typed a short response. Thank you for the heads up. I'll let you know about the meeting. Then he forced himself to focus on actual work, client emails, project updates, a conference call with the grocery chain about their organic produce branding that somehow devolved into a 20-minute argument about whether farm fresh was misleading since technically all produce came from farms. By 1:45, Liam's stomach was in knots. He grabbed his notebook, the one where he'd documented everything, and headed down to the 4th floor. Jennifer's office was small and windowless, decorated with motivational posters that probably came free with her HR certification. She was in her mid-40s with graying hair pulled into a practical bun and glasses that kept sliding down her nose. Liam, come in. Close the door. He did, then sat in the chair across from her desk. Jennifer folded her hands on top of a legal pad. So, Ava mentioned you might want to discuss some workplace concerns. Yes. Before we start, I want to make sure you understand that everything we discuss is confidential. I'm here to listen and help resolve any issues. This isn't about getting anyone in trouble. It's about making sure everyone has a safe, professional work environment. The speech sounded rehearsed, but Jennifer's expression was genuine enough. Liam took a breath. Ms. Sinclair has been making inappropriate advances toward me for several weeks now. Jennifer didn't react beyond picking up her pen. Can you give me specific examples? So Liam did. He walked her through the first meeting in Ava's office, the questions about his relationship status, the dinner invitation that was clearly personal rather than professional, the veiled threats about his career, the performance review that appeared after he refused the dinner. Jennifer took notes, asking clarifying questions, requesting exact dates and times where possible. And you documented all of this? She asked. Liam slid his notebook across the desk. Everything I could remember. Jennifer spent 10 minutes reading through it, her expression carefully neutral. Finally, she looked up. This is thorough. Thank you. She paused. I have to ask, did you feel physically threatened at any point? No, it was more psychological. The power dynamic. The implication that my job was contingent on accepting her advances. Quid pro quo harassment. Yes, Jennifer set down her pen. Liam, I appreciate you coming forward. This is serious, and it needs to be addressed properly. She hesitated. I also want to be honest with you about the situation. Okay. Ava spoke with me yesterday. She admitted to behaving inappropriately and creating an uncomfortable work environment. She took full responsibility and has already requested that we implement anti-harassment training for all executives. Jennifer met his eyes. She also said she wouldn't contest anything you reported and would cooperate fully with any investigation. Liam blinked. She said that? Yes, which is unusual in my experience. Most people in her position would deny everything or try to minimize it. So what happens now? Normally, I'd launch a formal investigation, interview witnesses, review communications, build a case. But given that the accused party has already acknowledged wrongdoing and is cooperating, Jennifer trailed off. What outcome are you looking for, Liam? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. I just wanted it documented. Wanted to make sure it didn't happen again. To you or to anyone? Anyone. Jennifer nodded slowly. All right. Here's what I'm proposing. We document everything you've told me today. It goes in your file and in a confidential report that I'll submit to the board. Ava has already agreed to undergo harassment training and to have no direct supervisory relationship with you going forward. And I'll be implementing company-wide policy changes to prevent this kind of situation in the future. That's it? What else would you like? Liam thought about it. I want her held accountable, but I don't want her fired. That's not what this is about. What is it about? Making sure it doesn't happen to the next person. Making sure people know they can speak up without losing everything. Then we're on the same page. Jennifer made a note. I'll also recommend that we establish clearer reporting structures and implement quarterly check-ins with all employees about workplace environment, anonymous surveys, that kind of thing. That sounds good? Is there anything else you want to add? Anything you feel hasn't been addressed? Liam glanced at his notebook, still sitting on Jennifer's desk. 3 weeks of fear and uncertainty, documented in his cramped handwriting. I just want to do my job, he said quietly. I want to pick up my daughter on time and not worry that my career is going to implode because I have boundaries. That's more than reasonable, Liam. That should be the baseline. Jennifer slid the notebook back to him. Keep this. And if anything else happens, anything at all that makes you uncomfortable, you come straight to me, okay? Okay. Good. She stood, extending her hand. Thank you for having the courage to report this. I know it wasn't easy. Liam shook her hand, surprised by the firmness of her grip. Thanks for listening. He left Jennifer's office feeling strange, lighter somehow, but also wrung out like he'd just run a marathon. The adrenaline that had been keeping him upright for the past hour was starting to fade, leaving him shaky and exhausted. Back at his desk, he sat down and just breathed for a minute. It was done. He'd reported it. It was documented. Whatever happened next, at least there was a record. His phone buzzed. Text from Ava. How did it go? Liam stared at the message. 3 weeks ago, he would have ignored it, would have been terrified of responding incorrectly, of saying the wrong thing. Now, he just typed the truth. Good. Jennifer was helpful. The response came back immediately. I'm glad. Are you willing to meet? I have something I'd like to discuss. My office, or neutral location if you'd prefer. Liam thought about it. Part of him wanted to say no, to keep as much distance as possible between himself and Ava Sinclair. But another part, the part that had heard genuine remorse in her voice Monday morning, was curious. Your office is fine. When? Now, if you're available? He should say no. Should take some time to decompress, to process everything that had just happened with Jennifer. Instead, he stood up and headed for the elevator. Ava's door was open when he arrived. She was standing by the window again, but this time she turned immediately when he knocked. Liam, thanks for coming. She gestured to the chairs by her desk, not the formal ones across from her, but the more casual seating area in the corner. Please, sit. He sat, and Ava took the chair across from him, not behind her desk. The shift in positioning felt deliberate. I want to start by saying again how sorry I am, Ava said, not just for my behavior toward you, but for the culture that made it possible. For thinking my position gave me the right to push boundaries, for not seeing how my actions affected you until you spelled it out. I appreciate that. I also want to thank you. for calling me out, for refusing to let it slide just because confronting me was risky. Ava leaned forward slightly. Do you know how rare that is? How many people would have just quit or suffered in silence or filed a lawsuit without ever giving me a chance to understand what I'd done wrong? I'm not a saint, Ms. Sinclair. I was terrified. Ava, please. Ava, then. I was terrified. I almost didn't report it. I spent days convinced that standing up to you would destroy my life. But you did it anyway, because my daughter was watching, and I couldn't teach her to tolerate things that are wrong just because they're scary. Ava sat back, something like wonder in her expression. Your daughter, Emma, right? Yes? She's 7? Yeah. What's she like? The question surprised him. Why do you want to know? Because she's clearly the most important person in your world, and I've spent weeks treating that like it was a weakness rather than a strength. Ava's smile was sad. I'd like to understand what I was missing. Liam hesitated, then decided to answer honestly. She's smart. Too smart, probably. She sees everything, remembers everything. She's funny without trying to be. She's kind. She still believes people are basically good, even after losing her mom. He paused. She's the best person I know. She sounds amazing. She is. And you're raising her alone. Yeah. That's... Ava stopped, shook her head. I can't even imagine. The responsibility, the weight of it. It's heavy sometimes, but it's also the only thing that makes sense. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ava stood and walked to her desk, picking up a folder. I've been working on something. Policy changes. Cultural reforms. Ways to make this company better for everyone, not just people without families or personal obligations. She handed him the folder. I'd like your input. Liam opened it. Inside were printouts of what looked like draft policies, flexible work arrangements, expanded parental leave, on-site childcare options, clear anti-harassment procedures with external reporting mechanisms. This is comprehensive, Les, he said. It's a start. But I need people to tell me if I'm missing things. People who actually live with these issues every day. Ava sat back down. I'm not just talking about you, though your perspective would be valuable. I want to form an employee committee, representatives from different departments and levels, parents, non-parents, everyone, to help shape policies that actually work. Why? Because what you said Monday about making promises to your daughter about being a father, it made me realize something. Ava's voice was quiet. I've built my entire life around taking opportunities, taking market share, taking whatever I wanted because I had the power to do it. But I've never built anything that actually helped people, that made their lives better in real, tangible ways. So this is guilt? Maybe partly, but it's also realizing that I can do better, that I should do better. She gestured to the folder. This company has 300 employees, 300 people with families, with obligations, with lives outside these walls. And I've been treating them like they should be grateful just to have jobs, like their personal needs were inconveniences. A lot of companies operate that way. Oh, doesn't make it right. Liam looked down at the policies again. Flexible scheduling, remote work options, protected time off for family emergencies. It was everything he'd wished for over the past 3 years, but had never thought to ask for because it seemed impossible. What do you need from me? He asked. Honesty, feedback, help making sure these policies actually work instead of just looking good on paper. Ava paused. And I'd like you to be on the committee, co-chair it actually with someone from upper management who isn't me. That's a lot of responsibility. You can handle it. You've been juggling a full-time job and single parenthood for 3 years. I think you can manage a committee. It would mean more time at work. It would mean flexible hours. You could work from home when needed, attend meetings virtually. We'd structure it around your schedule, not the other way around. Ava met his eyes. And you'd be paid for the additional responsibility. Not a huge bump, but enough to reflect the value of what you're contributing. Liam wanted to say no. Wanted to keep his head down, do his job, avoid anything that brought more attention. But he thought about Emma's question that morning, about whether the HR grown-ups would help, about doing what you're supposed to do when something's wrong. I'll do it, he said. On one condition. Name it. These policies apply to everyone, not just parents, not just people with kids. Anyone who needs flexibility for any reason, caring for elderly parents, managing a chronic illness, pursuing education, whatever. We don't create a hierarchy of whose personal life matters more. Ava's smile was genuine this time. Agreed. That's exactly the kind of perspective I need. When do we start? Next week. I'll send out the committee formation announcement tomorrow, and we'll have our first meeting Monday afternoon. 2 hours, with the option to join remotely. Ava stood, extending her hand. Thank you, Liam, for giving me a second chance. For not writing me off completely. Liam shook her hand. Everyone deserves a chance to do better, even billionaires. Especially billionaires. We tend to get away with too much for too long. He left her office with the folder under his arm, his mind spinning. This wasn't how he'd expected this day to go. He'd walked into Jennifer's office expecting documentation and damage control, and he'd walked out of Ava's office with a promotion and a chance to actually change things. It felt surreal. Back at his desk, he opened the folder again and started reading through the policies in detail. Some of them were perfect as written, others needed work. A few were well-intentioned but would never survive contact with reality. He made notes in the margins, thinking about what would actually help people like him, like the single parents in the warehouse, like the employees caring for sick relatives, like anyone who'd ever had to choose between their job and the people they loved. At 4:30, Marcus stopped by his cubicle. Hey, I heard a rumor you're going to be on some new committee. News travels fast. It's a small office. Marcus leaned against the cubicle wall. Is it true? The company's actually going to do flexible scheduling? That's the plan. Huh. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I've got a kid with asthma. He's in the ER about once a month. I've been burning through sick days and vacation time trying to cover it. You should put in for the committee. We need people with different situations. Yeah? Marcus looked surprised. You think they'd actually listen? I think they're starting to. Liam glanced at the clock. I've got to run. Pickup time. Right, your daughter. Marcus smiled. You know, I took your advice. Had dinner with my boys last night. They were so excited they couldn't stop talking about it. That's good, man. Yeah, it was. Marcus pushed off the wall. Thanks for that. And for fighting for this flexible schedule thing. Some of us have been wanting it for years but didn't know how to ask. Liam watched him walk away, then shut down his computer and grabbed his jacket. The rain had stopped, leaving everything wet and shining. Traffic was lighter than usual. He made it to Emma's school at 3:28, 2 minutes early. Emma bounced into the car with her usual energy, talking before she even had her seatbelt on. So guess what? Tyler Morrison actually did a backflip today and didn't fall, and everyone clapped, and he was so proud. But then at recess, he tried to do another one and fell again, and Mrs. Patterson said he needs to stop before he breaks something. Liam listened, asked questions, drove toward home. Normal afternoon routine, normal kid stories, normal life. Except something had shifted. The weight he'd been carrying for weeks, the fear, the uncertainty, the constant calculation of risk, had lifted. Not completely, but enough that he could breathe properly again. Dad, you're smiling. Am I? Yeah. Did something good happen at work? Maybe. Yeah, I think so. Did the HR people help? They did. And the mean lady? She apologized, and she's trying to make things better. Emma considered this. That's good. People should apologize when they mess up. They should. Are you still worried? Liam thought about it. A little, but not as much. Good. Emma returned to her backpack, pulling out a paper. Oh, I almost forgot. Parent-teacher conference tomorrow at 4 o'clock. You signed up for it. I did. You nervous? Nope. Mrs. Patterson loves me. Of course she does. They stopped at this grocery store because they were out of literally everything. Emma wanted to push the cart, which meant Liam had to walk slightly ahead to prevent her from crashing into displays. She only hit one end cap, which was a personal record. At home, Liam made chicken and rice while Emma did homework at the table. She had a worksheet about fractions that she complained about for 10 minutes before actually starting, then finished in 5 minutes because she'd already understood the concept perfectly. If you knew how to do it, why did you complain? Because complaining is fun. That's a terrible lesson. You complain about work all the time. That's different. How? Liam opened his mouth, then closed it. You got me there. Emma grinned, triumphant. After dinner, she wanted to play a board game, so they played Sorry for 45 minutes until Liam finally won by sending Emma's last piece back to start. That's so mean. That's the game, Bug. I want a rematch. Tomorrow. It's almost bedtime. The usual protests followed, the usual negotiations, the usual routine. Bath, pajamas, teeth brushing, story time. Emma had gotten obsessed with a series about a girl detective who solved mysteries in her neighborhood. Liam read 2 chapters, his voice getting softer as Emma's eyes drooped. By the end of the 2nd chapter, she was asleep, curled up under her purple comforter with one hand tucked under her cheek. He sat there for a moment, just watching her breathe. This kid. This amazing, exhausting, brilliant kid. Everything he did was for her, and for the first time in weeks he felt like maybe, just maybe, he could protect her and keep his job at the same time. Liam stood quietly and left the room, pulling the door mostly closed behind him. In the living room, he pulled out his laptop and sent an email to Ava. I read through the policies. I have notes. When you have time, I'd like to discuss implementation strategies, specifically how to make sure managers actually follow through and don't just pay lip service. Also, I think we should include mental health days as protected time off. A lot of people are struggling but don't feel like they can take time for it. Liam. He hit send, then opened a new email to Jennifer. Thank you again for today. I feel heard, which is more than I expected. If you need anything else from me for the documentation, let me know. Liam Carter. Then he closed the laptop and pulled out the couch bed. Tomorrow was parent-teacher conference. Friday was the first committee meeting announcement. Monday was the first actual meeting. The future was still uncertain. Ava might revert to her old patterns. The committee might fall apart. The policies might get watered down by legal or finance. But for tonight, Liam had done everything he could. He'd stood up, he'd spoken out, he'd drawn his lines and held them. And he was still here, still employed, still standing, still keeping his promises. That was enough. Ava's response came through at 11:47 p.m., long after Liam had turned off the lights, and was staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep despite his exhaustion. Mental health days are essential. Adding them to the draft now. Let's meet Friday morning to go through your notes before the announcement goes out. 9 a.m. work for you? Liam typed back in the dark, the phone screen too bright. Works for me. He set the phone down and closed his eyes, but sleep still wouldn't come. His brain kept cycling through everything that had happened, looking for the catch, the trap, the moment when this would all fall apart. Because things didn't just work out, not in his experience. When Sarah died, the insurance company had fought him for 6 months over the payout. When he tried to get Emma into therapy, 3 different counselors had wait lists measured in months. When he'd needed to take bereavement leave, his previous manager had made him use all his vacation days first. The world didn't hand out second chances. It didn't reward doing the right thing. Except maybe this time it had. Liam finally fell asleep around 1 a.m. and woke to his alarm feeling like he'd been hit by a truck. Coffee helped. Barely. Emma was unusually quiet at breakfast, pushing her frozen pancakes around her plate instead of inhaling them. You okay, Bug? Yeah. That didn't sound convincing. Emma set down her fork. What if Mrs. Patterson says bad things at the conference today? Why would she say bad things? You're doing great in school. I know, but what if she tells you about the time I talked during quiet reading, or when I forgot my homework that one day, or Emma? Liam reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Mrs. Patterson likes you. You're a good student. Even good students make mistakes sometimes. But you're going to be there listening to all of it. That's kind of the point of parent-teacher conferences. I know, but it's weird. Like 2 parts of my life meeting that usually don't meet. Liam understood that better than she probably realized. You want me to not go? No, I want you to go. Emma struggled to find the words. I want her to say good things. She will, I promise. You can't promise that. You don't know what she's going to say. You're right, but I can promise that whatever she says, I'm going to be proud of you. Because you work hard, and you're kind to people, and you try your best. That's all I ever want from you. Emma seemed to consider this, then nodded. Okay. She went back to her pancakes, eating them properly this time, and Liam felt that familiar squeeze in his chest. 7 years old and already anxious about performance reviews. He wondered if she'd picked that up from him, from watching him stress about work for the past 3 years. Probably. The thought bothered him more than it should have. At work, the morning crawled. Liam tried to focus on client emails, but his attention kept drifting to the folder of policy drafts sitting on his desk. He'd made extensive notes the night before. 23 pages of comments, suggestions, and questions about implementation. At 8:47, he grabbed the folder and headed up to Ava's office. She was already there, looking like she'd been awake for hours. 2 coffee cups sat on her desk, one empty, one half full. Her laptop was open, and she was typing rapidly when he knocked. "Liam, come in. I've been working on the mental health provisions." She gestured to the chair. "Did you know that 63% of our employees reported burnout in the last anonymous survey?" 63%. "And we've been doing nothing about it." "Good morning to you, too." Ava looked up, startled, then laughed. "Sorry, I get focused and forget basic social niceties." "Good morning. How are you?" "Tired. You?" "Same. I've been up since 4 working on this." "That's not healthy," says the man who was emailing me at midnight. "Fair point." Liam set his folder on her desk. "I have notes." "I figured. Let's see them." They spent the next 2 hours going through the policies line by line. Ava asked questions, pushed back on some of his suggestions, immediately accepted others. They argued about whether flexible scheduling should be opt-in or default. They debated how to handle emergencies without creating a system that could be abused. They discussed how to measure success. "We need metrics," Ava said, scribbling notes on her legal pad. "Otherwise, it's just feel-good policy with no accountability." "What kind of metrics?" "Employee retention rates among parents, sick day usage. If people feel less burned out, they should need fewer sick days. Survey data on work-life balance. Promotion rates for people using flexible scheduling versus those who don't." "That last one's important. We need to make sure using these policies doesn't become a career killer." "Agreed." Ava made another note. "What about a 6-month review? We implement everything, track the data, and adjust based on what's actually working? That's smart. Nothing's going to be perfect on the first try." "Exactly." Ava sat back, pushing her hair out of her face. "Okay, I think we've got something solid here. I'm sending the announcement out this afternoon." "That fast?" "No point waiting. The longer we delay, the more time people have to resist change." She pulled up her email. "I'm copying you on it so you can review before it goes out. Make sure I'm not missing anything." Liam's phone buzzed. He opened the email draft Ava had just sent. Subject: Important policy changes. Creating a better workplace team. I'm writing to announce significant changes to our workplace policies, effective immediately. These changes are designed to better support all employees in balancing their professional responsibilities with their personal lives. Effective November 1st. Flexible scheduling options for all employees with manager approval. Expanded parental leave of 12 weeks paid for primary caregivers, 6 weeks for secondary. Protected time off for family emergencies, mental health days, and caregiving responsibilities. Option for remote work up to 3 days per week for eligible positions. On-site childcare partnership. Details to follow. Quarterly anonymous surveys on workplace culture and work-life balance. These changes came about through employee feedback and a recognition that we can do better. We're also forming an employee wellness committee to help guide ongoing policy development. If you're interested in joining, please contact Jennifer in HR. This is just the beginning. We're committed to creating a workplace where everyone can thrive, not just survive. Ava Sinclair, Director, Morrison & Klein Marketing. Liam read it twice. It's good, clear, concrete, immediate. Any changes you'd make? Maybe add something about how these policies apply to everyone, not just parents. We don't want non-parents to feel like they're being excluded. Good catch. Ava revised the email, adding a line about how flexible scheduling and mental health support applied to all employees regardless of family status. Better? Much better. Okay, sending it. Ava hit send, then closed her laptop. Well, that's done. Now we see if people actually use the policies or if they're too scared of career repercussions. You'll need to lead by example. How so? Use the policies yourself. Take a mental health day. Work from home sometimes. Show people it's actually safe. Ava looked at him like he'd suggested she learn to fly. I'm the director. I can't just take mental health days. Why not? Because... She stopped. I don't know. Because I don't. That's exactly the problem. If you don't use the policies, no one else will feel safe using them either. They'll think it's a test. Huh. Ava drummed her fingers on her desk. You know what? You're right. I'll block out next Wednesday. Full mental health day. Go to a spa or something. Have you ever been to a spa? No. Is that sad? A little bit, yeah. They both laughed, and Liam realized with surprise that he was actually enjoying this conversation. Ava was different when she wasn't performing power. More human. More real. I should get back to work, he said, standing. I've got the parent-teacher conference at 4 o'clock. Right, Emma's teacher. Mrs. Patterson? Yeah. How's Emma feeling about it? Nervous. Worried about being judged, I think. She's 7. Where does she even learn that? Liam thought about his own anxiety over performance reviews, over job security, over everything. Kids pick up more than we think. I suppose they do. Ava walked him to the door. Good luck at the conference, and Liam, thank you for pushing me, for not letting me off easy. You did the work. I just pointed out where it needed to happen. Still, thank you. Liam left her office feeling oddly optimistic. The email would go out, people would see the policies. Maybe some of them would actually use them. Maybe things really were changing. The rest of the day passed in a blur of work and watching the clock. At 3:45, Liam shut down his computer and headed out. A few people had already responded to Ava's email with questions and expressions of cautious excitement. Marcus had sent a message asking about the childcare partnership details. Things were moving. Liam picked up Emma at 3:52, 8 minutes early because traffic had been lighter than expected. She was waiting by the pickup area, backpack on, looking small and worried. Ready? He asked when she climbed in. I guess. It's going to be fine, Bug. You keep saying that. Because it's true. They drove back to the school in silence. Emma picked at her backpack straps, and Liam tried to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. Not about the conference itself. Mrs. Patterson had always been kind and professional in their limited interactions, but about Emma's anxiety, about whether he'd somehow failed to create an environment where she felt safe making mistakes. They walked into the building together, Emma's hand small in his. The conference was being held in Mrs. Patterson's classroom, which still smelled like crayons and hand sanitizer. The teacher was sitting at her desk, a folder open in front of her. Mrs. Patterson was in her late 50s with gray hair and a warm smile that made kids feel immediately at ease. She stood when they entered. Liam, Emma, come in. Have a seat. They sat in the small chairs at one of the student tables, both of them looking comically oversized. So, Mrs. Patterson said, settling back at her desk, Emma is doing wonderfully this year. Emma's shoulders dropped about 3 inches with relief. Her math scores are excellent, Mrs. Patterson continued, pulling out some papers. She's reading above grade level. Her writing is creative and shows real personality, and she's kind to her classmates, which honestly matters more than any test score. See? Liam whispered to Emma. What did I tell you? Emma was beaming now, all her earlier anxiety forgotten. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention, Mrs. Patterson said. Emma sometimes rushes through her work. She understands the concepts quickly and then wants to be done, which means she makes careless mistakes. I've noticed that at home too. It's not a major concern, just something to be aware of. If she could slow down and double-check her work, her already good scores would be exceptional. Mrs. Patterson smiled at Emma. What do you think? Can you work on that? Emma nodded seriously. I can try. That's all I ask. Mrs. Patterson turned back to Liam. I also wanted to say how impressed I am with how you've supported Emma through everything. Single parenting is hard, and you're doing an amazing job. The compliment caught Liam off guard. Thank you. I'm just doing my best. Well, your best is working. Emma is thriving. Mrs. Patterson closed the folder. Do you have any questions or concerns? Just one. Emma mentioned a girl named Megan who's been bothering her. Is that something you're aware of? Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted slightly. Yes. Megan's going through some things at home and acting out a bit. I've been keeping an eye on it. Emma said Megan makes comments about her lunch and her clothes. I'll talk to Megan again, and I'll make sure Emma knows she can come to me if it continues. Mrs. Patterson looked at Emma. Does that sound okay? Emma nodded. Good. Anything else? They chatted for a few more minutes about upcoming school events and the holiday break schedule. Then Mrs. Patterson stood, signaling the end of the conference. Keep up the great work, Emma, and Liam, you're welcome to email me anytime if you have concerns. They walked out of the classroom together, Emma practically bouncing. She said I'm doing wonderfully. She did. And that I'm reading above grade level. You are. Can we celebrate? Liam glanced at his watch. 4:32 p.m. He'd left work at 3:45, which meant he'd been gone less than an hour. No angry emails from his manager, no summons from Ava. Just a normal afternoon, leaving early for a parent obligation. For the first time in 3 years, it didn't feel like playing hooky. Yeah, Bug, we can celebrate. What do you want? Pizza! We just had pizza. But this is different pizza. This is celebration pizza for me doing wonderfully. That's different from the celebration pizza for the math test? Completely different. Liam laughed. All right. Sal's it is. They drove to the pizza place, Emma chattering the whole way about how Mrs. Patterson had shown her parents her volcano project from last week, and how she'd gotten the gold star on the math test put up on the achievement board. At Sal's, they ordered their usual medium pepperoni and slid into their usual booth. Tony brought them water and crayons without being asked, and Emma immediately started drawing on the placemat. Dad? Yeah, Bug? Are things better at work now? Yeah, I think they are. The mean lady isn't mean anymore. She's trying to do better. Sometimes people make mistakes and then work to fix them. Like how I make careless mistakes on my math and need to slow down? Kind of like that, yeah. Emma considered this while coloring in what appeared to be a dragon. I'm glad she's doing better. I didn't like you being worried all the time. I'm sorry I worried you. It's okay. Mom used to say you worry because you care. There it was again. Sarah, appearing in Emma's observations like a ghost that refused to fully leave. Liam used to find it painful. Now it felt more like comfort, proof that Sarah was still part of their lives, still shaping Emma even in absence. Your mom was smart. I know, she was a scientist. She was. A really good one. The pizza arrived. They ate, Emma talking between bites about how she wanted to be a scientist too, or maybe a teacher, or possibly a professional pizza taste tester. Liam listened and asked questions and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness exactly. Not the absence of worry or fear, but something quieter and more sustainable. A sense that things were manageable, that the future might not be a series of disasters waiting to happen, that he might actually be doing okay. They finished the pizza and drove home through the early evening darkness. Emma fell asleep in the back seat, worn out from the day, and Liam carried her up to the apartment, her head heavy on his shoulder. He got her changed into pajamas without fully waking her, tucked her into bed, and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. 3 years. 3 years of doing this alone, of being both parents, of making every decision, carrying every burden, showing up every single day, no matter how tired or scared or overwhelmed he felt. And somehow, they'd made it. Emma was happy, healthy, doing well in school, making friends, still believing the world was basically good. That was enough. That was more than enough. Liam closed her door softly and went to check his phone. 3 new emails. One from Jennifer, confirming the first Employee Wellness Committee meeting for Monday at 2 p.m. One from Marcus, asking if Liam had any advice on talking to his manager about flexible scheduling. And one from Ava. The response to the policy announcement has been overwhelming. 73 employees have already asked for information about flexible scheduling. 12 have signed up for the Wellness Committee. And I've gotten more thank you emails in the past 3 hours than I've gotten in 4 months as director. I think we might actually be onto something. Thank you for pushing this, for not letting me stay comfortable in my ignorance. Ava Liam typed a response. Don't thank me yet. The real work is making sure this actually sticks, that it becomes culture, not just policy. But yeah, it's a good start. Ava's reply came back immediately. Agreed. See you Monday for the committee meeting. And Liam, take tomorrow off. You've earned it. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Paid day off. Use it. Liam stared at the email. A day off. Not PTO he had to request and justify. Not sick leave he had to hoard for emergencies. Just a day off because he'd worked hard and deserved it. He typed back, "Thank you. I will." Then he forwarded the email to himself just in case and closed his laptop. Friday morning, he woke up without an alarm for the first time in months. No rush to get Emma to school, no panic about traffic or timing, just a slow, easy morning. They made pancakes together, real ones, from scratch, following a recipe Sarah had loved. Emma cracked the eggs, getting shell in the bowl that Liam had to fish out. The pancakes were lumpy and unevenly cooked, but they tasted better than the frozen ones. "What are we doing today?" Emma asked, syrup on her chin. "Whatever you want." "Really? Really?" Emma's eyes went wide. "Can we go to the Science Museum?" "Absolutely." They spent 3 hours at the Pacific Science Center, Emma dragging him from exhibit to exhibit, asking 1,000 questions about everything from dinosaurs to space travel to how holograms worked. Liam didn't have answers to most of them, but that was okay. They read the plaques together, watched the demonstrations, let Emma touch everything she was allowed to touch. For lunch, they went to the museum cafeteria and ate overpriced sandwiches while Emma explained her theory about how dinosaurs might have had different colors than scientists thought because we don't know for sure and maybe they were sparkly. "That's an interesting hypothesis." "What's a hypothesis?" "A theory. An educated guess you can test." "Then, yes, it's my hypothesis." After the museum, they walked around Seattle Center, Emma insisting on riding the carousel even though she claimed she was way too old for that kind of thing. She picked the biggest horse, rode it with serious concentration, and Liam took about 20 photos on his phone. By the time they got home, it was almost dinner time and Emma was exhausted. She collapsed on the couch, declared she was never moving again, and was asleep within 10 minutes. Liam covered her with a blanket and sat in the chair across from her, his own exhaustion setting in. It had been a good day. No, more than good. It had been the kind of day he'd been too busy to have for 3 years. The kind of day Sarah would have insisted on. The kind of day Emma would remember years from now. His phone buzzed. Text from his mom in Michigan. "How's my favorite grandson?" "She's your only granddaughter, Mom. Don't be pedantic. How is she?" "Good. Really good. We just spent the day at the Science Museum." "On a Friday? Did you take the day off?" "Yeah." "Are you sick? Is Emma sick?" "What's wrong?" Liam smiled at the phone. "Nothing's wrong. Just using some PTO. Liam James Carter. Who are you and what have you done with my son?" "Very funny. I'm serious. You never take time off." "Never. I'm trying to do better." There was a pause, then, "Good. Sarah would be proud." The words hit harder than expected. Liam sat there, staring at the text, feeling something break open in his chest. Sarah would be proud. Not just of Emma, though she'd be over the moon about that, but of him, for standing up to Ava, for drawing boundaries, for protecting his time with their daughter, for finally taking a day off to just be present. He wiped his eyes quickly, then typed back, "Thanks, Mom. That means a lot. Love you, honey. Give Emma a kiss from me." "Will do." Liam set the phone down and looked at Emma, still asleep on the couch, her hair falling across her face. 3 years ago, he'd made a promise to Sarah standing in a hospital chapel while his world collapsed around him. He'd promised to take care of their daughter, to be enough for her, to make sure she knew she was loved. He'd kept that promise, but somewhere along the way he'd forgotten to promise anything to himself. Forgotten that he deserved rest, deserved boundaries, deserved a life that was more than just surviving. Maybe it was time to change that. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Liam dropped Emma at school, drove to work, and found the office buzzing with energy. The policy announcement had clearly struck a chord. He overheard at least 3 conversations about flexible scheduling before he even made it to his desk. At 1:45, he headed up to the conference room for the first Employee Wellness Committee meeting. 10 people were already there, representing different departments and levels. Marcus from Creative, a woman named Linda from Accounting, 2 warehouse workers, someone from IT, a few others Liam recognized but didn't know well. Ava arrived at 1:58 carrying a notepad and what appeared to be her 3rd coffee of the day. "Thank you all for being here," she said, settling into a chair at the head of the table. This committee exists because we need to do better as a company. We need policies that actually work for real people with real lives. And you're the people who are going to help us figure out what that looks like. The meeting lasted 2 hours. They discussed implementation timelines, potential roadblocks, how to handle manager pushback. Linda from accounting raised concerns about how flexible scheduling would impact team cohesion. One of the warehouse workers asked about whether the policies would apply to hourly employees or just salaried ones. Liam found himself falling into a rhythm, mediating discussions, asking clarifying questions, making sure everyone's voice was heard. It felt natural. Right. By the time the meeting ended, they had a rough action plan and a schedule for bi-weekly check-ins.
This was good, Ava said as people filed out. Really good. You were great at facilitating. Thanks. I just tried to make sure everyone got heard. That's harder than it sounds. Ava gathered her notes. Next meeting is Wednesday. Can you co-chair with me? Yeah, I can do that. Good. She paused at the door. How was your day off Friday? Perfect. We went to the Science Museum. Emma loved it. That sounds nice. I took a mental health day on Wednesday like you suggested. How was it? Weird. I didn't know what to do with myself. Ava laughed. I ended up at a spa like I said I would. Got a massage, sat in a steam room, felt guilty the entire time. That's the workaholism talking. Probably, but I'm going to keep trying. Force myself to take breaks until it stops feeling wrong. That's all any of us can do. Over the next few weeks, the policies started to take effect. People began using flexible scheduling. The first mental health day request came through. 3 employees signed up for the childcare partnership. There was pushback, of course. Some managers complained about scheduling complexity. Some employees worried about career impacts. The warehouse had implementation challenges that required creative solutions. But the committee worked through it, meeting every Wednesday, adjusting policies as they went, listening to feedback. And slowly, things started to change. Marcus started leaving at 5 o'clock twice a week to have dinner with his kids. Linda, in accounting, worked from home on Mondays to care for her elderly mother. One of the warehouse workers took a mental health day after a particularly rough week and came back noticeably more relaxed. People started talking about work-life balance like it was actually achievable, not just a corporate buzzword. 6 weeks after the initial policy announcement, Ava called an all-hands meeting. The entire company crammed into the largest conference room, people standing along the walls when the chairs ran out. Liam stood near the back with Emma's parent-teacher conference permission slip in his pocket. He'd left work at 3:30 without asking, just sent a calendar invite and left, and nobody had questioned it. Ava stood at the front of the room, looking more relaxed than Liam had ever seen her. I want to share some data with you, she said, pulling up a slide. Since we implemented the new workplace policies 6 weeks ago, we've seen a 23% decrease in sick days used. Employee satisfaction scores are up 31%, and we haven't lost a single employee to turnover, which is unusual for this time of year. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. More importantly, Ava continued, 74% of you report feeling more valued by the company. 82% say you're better able to manage personal responsibilities alongside work, and 91% say you'd recommend Morrison & Klein as a good place to work. She let that sink in. These policies are working, not just for parents, not just for caregivers, but for everyone. Because when we respect people's humanity, when we acknowledge that work is just one part of a full life, everyone benefits. Ava paused, then looked directly at Liam. This didn't happen because I'm a visionary leader. It happened because one person had the courage to tell me I was wrong, to draw a line and hold it, even when it was risky, even when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Liam felt heat creep up his neck as people turned to look at him. So I want to publicly thank Liam Carter, Ava said, for his honesty, for his integrity, for refusing to compromise on what mattered. He changed this company for the better, and we all owe him for that. The room erupted in applause. Liam stood there completely mortified as his coworkers clapped and a few people patted him on the shoulder. Marcus caught his eye from across the room and gave him a thumbs up. When the applause finally died down, Ava smiled. All right, that's enough embarrassing Liam. Back to work, everyone. And remember, if you need flexibility, ask for it. That's what these policies are for. The meeting broke up, people streaming out of the conference room.
Liam tried to slip away quietly, but Ava caught him at the door. Sorry about that. I know you hate being the center of attention. You could have warned me. I could have, but then you would have tried to talk me out of it. She smiled. You did something important, Liam. People should know it. I just told the truth. Exactly. In a world where people usually don't, that's revolutionary. Liam didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and headed back to his desk. His phone was full of messages, coworkers thanking him, people asking if he'd really stood up to the director, Marcus wanting to grab coffee sometime and hear the whole story. He responded to a few, ignored most, and pulled up his calendar. Parent-teacher conference in an hour, then home for dinner, then homework help and bath time and story time and all the normal, boring, beautiful routines that made up his life. Tomorrow, he'd come back to work. The committee would meet on Wednesday. The policies would continue to evolve. There would be challenges and setbacks and moments when everything felt like too much. But for today, he'd done enough. More than enough. Liam shut down his computer at 3:15 and headed out. The parent-teacher conference went well. Emma was still doing wonderfully, still rushing through her work, still fundamentally the same amazing kid she'd always been. Mrs. Patterson mentioned that Megan had transferred to a different class, which solved that problem in the most anticlimactic way possible. Afterwards, Emma wanted to celebrate with pizza. Again. Bug, we can't have pizza every time something good happens. Why not? Because you'll turn into a pizza. Emma giggled. That's silly. People can't turn into food. Are you willing to risk it? Yes. So they went to Sal's. Again. Tony didn't even ask what they wanted anymore, just started making a medium pepperoni the second they walked in. They sat in their usual booth, Emma drawing on her placemat, Liam watching her and feeling that squeeze in his chest that meant contentment mixed with the bittersweet awareness of time passing. Dad? Yeah, Bug? Mrs. Patterson asked me what I want to be when I grow up. What did you tell her? I said I want to be like you. Liam froze. Like me? Yeah, someone who keeps their promises. Who stands up for what's right even when it's scary. Emma looked up from her drawing. That's what you did, right? At work? I tried to. Mrs. Patterson said that's brave, is it? Liam thought about it. About standing in Ava's office, terrified and certain he was about to lose everything. About refusing to compromise, about drawing lines and holding them. I don't know if it's brave, he said slowly. Sometimes it just feels like the only choice. But you were scared? Yeah, I was really scared. But you did it anyway. Yeah. Emma nodded, satisfied. That's what brave means. Mom told me that once. She said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared, but you do the right thing anyway. Liam's throat tightened. Your mom was smart about a lot of things. I know. I miss her. Me too, Bug. Every day. But we're okay, right? Just us? Liam reached across the table and took her hand. We're more than okay. We're good. We're really, really good. Emma smiled, and Liam saw Sarah in that smile. The way it lit up her whole face. The way it made everything else fade into background noise. The pizza arrived. They ate, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the weekend, discussing Emma's hypothesis about sparkly dinosaurs. And for the first time in 3 years, Liam wasn't counting minutes or calculating risks or worrying about what came next. He was just there, present, with his daughter, keeping his promises, being enough. Later, after they'd gone home and finished the bedtime routine, after Emma was asleep with her purple comforter pulled up to her chin, Liam sat on his pull-out couch with a beer he hadn't earned and thought about everything that had changed. He'd stood up to power and survived. He'd drawn boundaries and been respected for it. He'd helped change an entire company culture. But more than any of that, he'd shown Emma something important, that you don't compromise on what matters, that you keep your promises even when it's hard, that being a good person is worth more than being a successful one. Those were lessons Sarah would have wanted her to learn, and Liam had taught them, not through words, but through action, through showing up, through refusing to back down, through being the father Emma deserved. His phone buzzed. Text from Ava. Board meeting went well. They're expanding the policies company-wide and increasing the wellness committee budget. You're getting a raise too, 15%, effective immediately. You earned it. Liam stared at the message, then typed back. Thank you. For listening. For changing. For doing better. Thank you for making me. He set the phone down and finished his beer, looking around the small apartment that had been home for 3 years. Maybe they could afford something bigger now. A 2-bedroom, so he didn't have to sleep on a pull-out couch. Somewhere with a little more space. Or maybe they'd stay here. Because size didn't matter. Money didn't matter. What mattered was that Emma was safe and loved and happy. What mattered was that he kept his promises. What mattered was that they had each other. Everything else was just details. Liam pulled out the couch, lay down, and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he'd wake up at 5:47. He'd make breakfast. He'd drive Emma to school. He'd go to work. He'd come home. He'd keep his promises. Same as always. But now, finally, it didn't feel like survival. It felt like living. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.